Hello everyone, my name is Zach and welcome to On Cash Flow, where I help you become a master of your own cash flow. Now let's get started. No one has everything figured out. You are going to make mistakes, especially when it comes to financial independence, getting better with your finances. But it's better to learn from other people's mistakes than from your own mistakes. And that's why I want to share some of my mistakes with you today so that you can learn not to make the same mistakes. These mistakes cost me from retiring even earlier. Now don't get me wrong, I retired extremely early and I am very grateful for that. But still, I had my fair share of mistakes. And the very first one I had was I held too much cash. Initially on my journey to financial independence, I didn't exactly know what I was doing. I didn't exactly know I was going for financial independence, and I didn't exactly know that I needed to invest as much as possible. So in the beginning, I did save a lot of my money relative to how much I invested. I saved just about as much as I did invest. And when you're starting out, your net worth is not going to be that high. So as a percentage of my net worth, a lot of it was in cash. And this is a huge mistake if you want to become financially independent pretty much as soon as possible, because cash is not going to be doing much for you. And that means I was losing out on a lot of opportunity cost. And I'm talking about the years around 2013, 2014, 2015. Around those years, I had a lot as a percentage of my net worth in cash. And I think that was definitely a mistake. I missed out on a lot of potential, market gains during that time. And of course, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. I still did invest. I still am where I am today because of the choices that I made back then. But I think that if I would have held a lot less cash, I would be a little bit better off, and maybe I would have retired a little bit earlier. And speaking of getting on the path to financial independence, I do have another video that I created on a full guide to getting started on the path to financial independence. And if you haven't watched that video, I do want you to watch that, but let's talk about that at the end of this video. Let's go ahead and next move on to my next mistake that I made when I first started investing for financial independence. And that was that I first started out by selecting individual stocks and trying to invest in individual stocks. So I thought that's what you had to do in order to gain wealth. And unfortunately, I didn't know what index funds were at the time. So initially, I started investing in individual stocks, and I kind of took that age-old advice to invest in something that you understand, invest in a company that you know, and invest in a company that you think is temporarily down, that you think it's gonna, make a recovery. And so where did that get me? Well, around 2013, the first stock that I bought was actually JCPenney. So JCPenney is like that retail store. They mainly focus on clothing. And I think I invested a large sum for me at the time, like $500 into that stock, because I knew that the stock was doing bad. I understood the company. I got all my clothes from there. And so I was investing in something I knew and something that I thought was temporarily down and was worth more than what I paid for it. Well, that turned out to be very, very false looking back at it. It's actually pretty funny because JCPenney now, they did declare bankruptcy, and now I believe they are privately owned. So they don't have any public stock anymore. They've actually gone bankrupt. So I think that's pretty funny because I literally would have lost all the money that I invested in that individual stock. And that just goes to show you that you really don't know what you're doing in most circumstances. If you're investing in individual companies, you really don't know what's going to happen to them. You really don't know if their fundamentals are sound, no matter how many times you look at their reports, especially if you don't have extensive experience. And by the way, if you're enjoying hearing about my failures, then shame on you. But no, seriously, if you're enjoying this video so far, please make sure you like the video if you're enjoying it. I would really appreciate that and it would really help me out. But let's get on to some more failures. The next failure that I made wasn't as bad as the one I just talked about, but I did move on to something that was a little bit of a lesser of an evil in my opinion. And that was I stopped investing in individual stocks and started investing in actively managed mutual funds. At this point, I learned about diversifying your portfolio. I learned that mutual funds are able to pull your money together and you're able to invest in way more companies with the same amount of money. And I thought that was pretty cool. I also figured that there are professional money managers out there and they know what they're doing. And so they're going to get me a much better return than what I could get on my own. And so that was kind of the logic there. So I started investing in an actively managed mutual fund on the platform that I first started on, which was Fidelity. I don't remember the name of the actual mutual fund that I invested in. I know that it was a stock mutual fund. I didn't know exactly what it was, but this is a pretty funny story of how I actually found that fund to begin with. So I simply just went on to Fidelity. I went to their research tab for mutual funds. I just put a filter in there for the Morningstar rating. It had to be at least 4 stars. And I put a filter in there for the best performance in the past 5 years. And I believe I just sorted it by those filters. And then I picked the mutual fund that was right there on top. So I figured if they did well in the past 5 years, then maybe they're going to do well in the next 5 years or something like that. But the funny thing with that logic is that it is completely untrue. It really is that past performance is not indicative of future performance. It's true that actively managed mutual funds tend to severely underperform their benchmarks that they are trying to go for over long periods of time. Maybe, yes, some of them do well in 5-year periods. If we extend that time horizon, as reported by the active versus passive study that's done every year, over 20 years, the performance of actively managed mutual funds versus their index benchmarks is very, very sad. And you can see that on the chart that's on the screen right now. Most actively managed mutual funds do fail to outperform their benchmarks over long periods of time. And if you are a long-term investor, if you have that long-term mindset, you're pretty much investing forever, then your odds are going to be very, very low that you're going to select that magic mutual fund that's going to perform that well over super long periods of time. And unfortunately for me at the time, I did not know about all of that. And so I just thought that I would get pretty good returns by investing in a mutual fund manager. But again, this is another lesson of don't let perfect be the enemy of good. At least I was investing, at least I was putting a lot of money into these mutual funds rather than not investing at all because I didn't have the perfect optimal choice. Now, really quick, I want to know from you in the comments below, what are some of your biggest investing mistakes or some of your biggest mistakes on your path to financial independence? Please leave me a comment below. I'd love to discuss it with you. But I have another one of my own mistakes that I have for you, and that is I believe that I didn't put enough money into my Roth accounts. And the primary reason for that was I just wanted to have such a low tax bill as much as possible. I was so kind of hyper-focused on, all right, I pretty much don't want to pay any federal income taxes. And that's how I kind of structured where I was putting my money at the time. Now, looking back at it, I do wish I put a little bit more into my Roth IRA or to my Roth accounts. I did put some in my Roth accounts, but I also put some into my traditional accounts. But at the time, I was in a very low tax bracket. I was usually in the 10% marginal tax bracket when it comes to federal income taxes. It was probably way more worth it for me to put more money in the Roth IRA, even if I had to pay some taxes on some of that income that I was putting in there. Especially now that we can look back in hindsight and see how well the market has done, all of that money would be, tax-free Roth IRA money for me. Fortunately, I am kind of fixing that minor mistake by slowly converting my traditional money into my Roth IRA. So that is happening over time right now, but I could have just had it all in the Roth IRA to begin with. I actually looked back at my Roth IRA contributions and I kind of look at them with a small, little nod to the side. I was like, oh man, I only put $3,000 in my Roth IRA and then I put $3,000 in my traditional IRA. I was in a 10% bracket. Why didn't I just put, the full $6,000 in my Roth IRA? That is another example, another good one of don't let perfect be the enemy of good. At least I was saving money, whether it was in a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA. It might have not been perfectly optimal, but it still got me to where I am today and I'm super grateful for that. If you want to be on the path to financial independence, even if you already are, I do have another video that you definitely need to watch, okay? It's going to help you out tremendously. My full guide to getting started on the path to financial independence. Even if you're already on the path, you need to get on the path that I'm going to teach you. So please watch that video. It's going to pop up on the screen right after I get off the screen. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm Zach from OnCashflow.com, and I hope to see you next time.